Welcome to the Mission Made podcast. In today's episode, I want to bring you something that is a little different than what I would normally put out into the podcast world. And if you're new here, what I normally would talk about is something related to faith, family, or fitness. And typically there's going to be an overlap between at least two or potentially three of those areas. And today I'm kind of abandoning the faith and the family thing, and we're really honing in on the fitness aspect. And today's topic is just something that has been on my mind a lot lately. And I've been seeing, different people's videos on it. And every time I see one, I'm like, I got to do an episode on that at some point. So today's topic is going to be how to start a home CrossFit gym on any budget. So I hope that as I talk about this, I'm going to give literally, if you're interested in having a CrossFit gym in your home and being able to do CrossFit on demand anytime that you want, I'm going to give you the tools and the resources in this episode to be able to make progress towards that goal. And literally, I'm telling you, you'll be able to do this regardless of your budget, no matter how big or how small it is. The only difference is in your budget is how fast can you get from point A to point Z. So we're going to dive into that. But before I do, I think it's worth mentioning why even invest in a home gym. Like what's the purpose of it? What's the value in it? And I'm just going to share a few reasons why I think having a home gym is super important. And I'll say that, I've almost always had a home gym in some sort of capacity. It's definitely evolved and grown over the years, but I would never go back to not having a home gym, because the things that I'm getting ready to tell you as far as reasons why you should have one, they're just so integrated in my life and so valuable to me that I could just never go backwards in that area. So the first reason why I think you should invest in a home gym is because it literally takes out every excuse in the world. And whenever I think about going to the gym, making fitness a priority for you, that is going to be just a daily habit that you have to engage in, right? And in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, one of the things he talks about in that book is if there's a habit that you wish to implement in your life, then you need to make it as easy as possible for you to engage in that activity. And in this case, if it's working out, you need to do everything you can to make it as easy as possible. Now, there's plenty of things that you can do to make going to the gym easier. But if you have a home gym, it takes out every possible excuse. Rain, shine, you have 15 minutes, like anything, you can make it happen. That would be the very first reason. The second reason is whenever you have a home gym, it becomes not just your garage or not just your basement or not just your spare bedroom, but it actually becomes a part of your house, like your gym area, and it really starts to integrate into your overall lifestyle. And that's really hard to explain just with words. I think, the value in it is you just have to kind of get started. You have to begin integrating it. And once you do, you'll realize how valuable of an asset that is. The next one that I'm going to talk about is creating a culture within your family. So like for right now, it's just my wife and I. We don't have kids yet, but I can say that us having a home gym, continuing on with that lifestyle and becoming integrated in our lifestyle, it has become a part of the culture of our family. Just the value, I would say, of fitness. Like we really value fitness, and we're consistently out in the garage, which is, maybe 15 feet away from where we eat all of our meals. It's just raised the bar for both of us in that area. And as we have kids one day, and as I said, I'll never go without a home gym again, what I foresee happening is a really cool integration that once you have kids, you're able to raise them up in a culture and in an environment that promotes, healthy lifestyle, that promotes being fit, but also just like creating a positive relationship with what fitness is. I think, a lot of kids, we see this all the time, kids view fitness almost as punishment, right? Because it's like, hey, you were in a sport and you were not paying attention, in the layup lines during basketball, so coach made you run after practice. That physical exercise of running, we begin to associate a negative connotation, like it's a punishment. And whenever you have a home gym and you're constantly engaging in that as the parents of a household, I think just naturally what happens is the kids automatically get a positive outlook on what working out is. And the kids automatically have a positive outlook as to what working out is. And rather than viewing it as punishment, they just see it as like another thing that mom and dad do. And imagine this, like you as parents are your child's world. Like whenever your kids are 5, they don't know much of the world besides like what you put in front of them. So it's very possible for your child to be 5, 6, 7 years old. And like all they know is that, hey, we work out and we just do things. We're active. And it doesn't mean you have to be super regimented about it, especially at young ages like that, but they're just able to, kids are sponges. They pick up on things. And if you are consistent about leading in your family in that way, believe me, even though I can't speak from experience quite yet, I know it to be true because I've been able to see it in friends' lives and families' lives, other family that do have kids. It's absolutely true. So I really believe in that. The next reason is because, it's going to cost you some money to purchase some gym equipment. One of the pro tips that I'm going to share with you here in a little bit is to always buy the best equipment first. So even if it costs a little bit more, go ahead and buy it, because if it allows you to never have to buy that piece of equipment again, it's going to be worth it in the long run. So even though you're spending money now, it's going to end up saving you money in the long run. That's, to me, a reason to have a home gym. The last reason, and I would say this is dependent on personality and just who you are, but I really like the ability to work on specific goals of mine. And in a typical CrossFit setting, sometimes that's, allowed and enabled. And sometimes it's hard to do those types of things. You might be someone who you don't necessarily care about working on your specific goals. You just need the accountability of a coach and the accountability of a class. In that way, I would say you need to go to an actual CrossFit gym. But if you're kind of like me, it's like, hey, I don't really need that accountability per se. I just really like engaging in the things that like I want to work on. A home gym absolutely gives you the freedom to do that. And so that would be a reason why I would do it that way. Now, we've discussed why you should have a home gym in general, but I'm very specific in how I'm approaching this episode. We're not just building any home gym. We're building a home gym that can be utilized for CrossFit. And I need to address why. Why are we putting so much emphasis on CrossFit? Maybe you've never done CrossFit before. You've only been to your normal 24/7 gym. The reason why I would say we need to engage in CrossFit is because I believe it's the most bang for your buck way of doing fitness that's literally on the market. And when I say bang for your buck, I mean both time and budget wise. We're going to eventually get to the numbers here and realize that you can do a lot of CrossFit with spending very little money on equipment, but also let's just talk about time. You can absolutely accomplish more if you have 20 minutes engaging in some sort of HIIT CrossFit Metcon than you will anything else. Now, I'm not saying we should live and die by that 20-minute Metcon. I think there's so much more that we should focus on: strength training, being specifically drilling, cardiovascular training. There's a lot of aspects to it. But there's going to be days when you only have 20 minutes. You need to get in and out. And in that scenario, CrossFit absolutely gives you the most bang for your buck. And if you're leaning towards having a home gym, chances are time is probably one of those really important ones. If you've got a family, like I've already talked about, you don't want to be spending an extra amount of time in the gym. You want to be able to get in and out, in 60 minutes if you have to, and get the most out of that session. That's one reason why I would for sure emphasize that it needs to be a CrossFit type of gym. The next reason is because CrossFit is a GPP program. GPP stands for General Physical Preparedness, meaning you're not going to necessarily become amazing at any aspect of fitness if you engage in CrossFit. Like, you're not going to become the best marathon runner ever. You're not going to have the fastest mile time ever. You're not going to be able to set a deadlift world record. But one thing is true is you're going to be able to be sufficient in a lot of different areas. You're going to be able to run a mile in a very good time. Maybe not the best time, but a good time. You're also going to be able to deadlift a very good weight. You're also going to be able to do things like bringing your body through space, doing things that are functional in real life, like taking your body weight, moving it from under a bar to over a bar, or moving an external object from point A to point B. There's just a lot there. But I just think that it's so good for us to engage in that GPP type of training because it prepares us for life. And another cool thing with CrossFit style of training is you can very easily tweak it a little bit to go from a GPP program towards something that's more sports specific. So let's say you do have a specific goal. You want to get a stronger deadlift. You could really lean into that area while still maintaining a very good base of fitness. Or if you have kids growing up, they're engaging in certain sports, you could adjust the CrossFit training and the equipment that would be needed for CrossFit to support whatever their sport is. Now, let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of how you would get a CrossFit gym started. I'm going to be feeding this information to you guys in waves. And as I mentioned earlier, this can be done on any budget. The only difference, if you have a really big budget versus a little budget, is on a big one, you're going to be able to move through these waves really fast. And if you have a smaller budget, it's going to take you a little bit longer to work through these waves, but rest assured, you can still accomplish all of them. Now, as I give you the waves, you might realize, hey, not all of these waves are important to me. There's 4 total, but there's a possibility that you might be able to stop after wave 2. Like you don't care enough. It's just not a value to you to be able to engage in some of the nuances of building a home gym. So you can just kind of get off the train after wave 2. You don't even need to worry about wave 3 and 4. But one thing I hear often is that people, they don't have the money, right, to do CrossFit. Maybe that's because they don't have the money to engage in a bunch of equipment and purchase it. Or maybe they just don't have the money to spend on a monthly membership at a CrossFit gym, because sometimes they are expensive depending on where you live. And as I said, I'm taking that completely out of the picture with these waves. So my recommendation as you're getting started and as we move into phase 1 or wave 1 of building your home CrossFit gym, you need to set aside a dollar amount per week. And this can be a very low dollar amount. For example, $20. Every time you get paid, whether it's on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, or however you get paid, make it a priority. I'm going to set aside $20, and this is going to go towards some sort of gym fund. And as that fund builds, whether it gets up to $100, $200, $300, you're going to purchase the necessary equipment first for phase one. And phase one, I'm calling the essentials. So quite literally, I'm just going to be naming these off. So you might have to re-listen to this or write these down. Starting from the top, you need some dumbbells. I would always buy my dumbbells in sets of 2. I would always do the rubber hex dumbbells. I wouldn't buy, those Bowflex dumbbells that you can, shift a gear or a lever here or there, and it can either be a 20-pounder or a 50-pounder. In this case, I wouldn't even mess with those. I would just buy the rubber hex head dumbbells. You're going to need a couple to get started. My recommendation would be to get a pair of 50s, a pair of 35s, and a pair of 25s. Now, there's a possibility that you're not going to be able to use the 50s for everything at first, depending on your strength level. I think most people, at least if you're a male, and you're probably a male if you're listening to this, you can do most of everything you would need to with the 35-pound dumbbells, but the 50s give you room to grow. I would also get a pair of 25s. The reason I would do that is for warm-ups. You're going to want something a little bit lighter that you can just, hop on if you're a little bit cold to get those joints loosened up and get those muscles activated. For example, if you're doing something overhead, probably not a good idea to put that 50-pound dumbbell over your head cold. Probably going to be good to, do the 25s and then do the 35s and then do the 50s. You guys kind of get the idea. But get the dumbbells because there's so many things you can do with it. Almost any movement that you can think of to do with a barbell, a deadlift, a press, even a clean or a squat, you can do all of those things in a dumbbell form. And dumbbells are significantly cheaper than a barbell. Pro tip here, I would buy them from Walmart. They're going to be a lot cheaper than buying them from Rogue. You heard me say earlier, buy the really good equipment first. That way you never have to buy it again. I think the dumbbells are an exception to the rule. Unless you just have the big budget and you want to go ahead and buy the Rogue dumbbells, buy them from Walmart. If you get on Walmart's website, you're going to find the cheapest dumbbells possible, and you're going to get free shipping. That's my first recommendation in phase one. The next one is going to be a 3-sided box. Ideally, you're going to want to get a box that is, 20 inches on one side, 24 inches on another, 30 inches on another. Now, depending on where you're at in your fitness level and journey, maybe you get one that's even smaller than that, but it's still 3-sided. Reason is because you want to be able to use it for multiple different things, and you want to give yourself room to grow. So let's just say the 30-inch box, that's not something you're going to touch very often, but you can do the 20-inch box. I would go ahead and get that box that has the ability to do 30 inches just to give yourself a target and a place to go to. The next one is just super cheap, is a jump rope. Now, there's only one movement that we can do with a jump rope, which is the only downside about that tool. There's like a dumbbell and a box. There's lots of things we can do with them, different movements and whatnot. A jump rope, we're pretty much just limited to jump rope. However, I threw it on here because it's so cheap. You can just pick it up for a few dollars. The next one that I'm going to talk about is a wall mount pull-up bar. Now, not just any wall mount pull-up bar is going to do. You're going to want to find one that's sturdy, that you're going to be able to do all the rig movements in CrossFit in. You're going to want to be able to do pull-ups, kipping pull-ups, toes to bar, kipping, muscle-ups. These are things you're going to want to add into your repertoire. And Titan Fitness has one of these for literally like $80. And it's super sturdy. You can do all these movements. So I would definitely get that. The next thing is going to be some rubber mats. In fact, you're going to see rubber mats as a part of every single wave because as you get more equipment, you're going to need more mats and more floor space to perform these different activities on. So I'd probably get like 4 to 6 to start. That's going to give you just like a nice little working area. Then you can always add more later. The next thing would be a wall ball. A wall ball is fairly cheap, and you can get a lot done with it. You can do wall balls. You just need a target. You can do wall balls on a tree if you want to be like Kale Lehman. That's an inside joke, and you probably don't get it, but it is funny. You can do things like Russian twist with them. You can do things like wall ball sit-ups. There's just like a lot of things you can do. And that's the last item. The overall theme of phase 1 that I'm calling the essentials is you want to maximize the amount of movements that you can do. Like every time you think, should I buy this piece of equipment or should I not buy this piece of equipment? In the early stages of building a home gym, it's all about movements. Does buying a box open up, just one movement for me, or does it open up 10 movements for me? And always buy the thing early on that allows you to do more movements. That's the overall theme of phase 1. Phase 2 has a similar theme to that, but I'm calling this phase expanding your horizons. Now, we're getting into a little bit more money as we go through these different phases. Like phase 1, you could literally do all of that for probably $300 to $400. And if you're setting aside any dollar amount on a weekly basis, you're going to get there faster than you think. So do not be discouraged if that amount feels like a lot for you. You'll get there as long as you stay disciplined. But phase 2, we can really spend some money here. However, I would still consider all of these things essentials in a way if you want to really make this like this CrossFit thing a staple into your life, and you want to do it for a long time and continue to progress in your fitness. The first one, I would say, some of these are interchangeable, but a machine of choice. You're going to get tired of running eventually. Like in phase 1, you can add running to that list, although that's not a piece of equipment you need to buy. That's just an activity to engage in. That's really good cardio, but at some point, whether you just get tired of it or the weather gets cold and you don't want to be outside running, a machine is going to come in handy. A pro tip here is I would go to Facebook Marketplace and I would probably start with a Concept 2 rower. The reason is there's so many Concept 2 rowers on Facebook Marketplace, and depending on where you live, like if you live in a more metro area, there's probably a lot available. If you just watch it for 2 or 3 months, you are certain to find a good deal. In my opinion, if you could get a Concept 2 rower for about $600, that's an amazing deal. And one thing you can almost be certain of is the rowers that I've seen, at least, man, they'll last just about forever. I mean, there's a way to check the lifetime meters, like the odometer on a rower. And even if it's a high number, like 100,000 meters, I would not be afraid to buy that rower because they last a long time. Especially if you take care of it, they will last a long time. So go to Facebook Marketplace, find a rower, find one for $600 or offer $600 and negotiate to that point to which you'd be getting a good deal. The next one is going to be to get some sort of wall mount rig or squat stand. The reason I say or is if you already have that really good pull-up bar that I mentioned in phase 1, you can almost skip the rig and just get a squat stand. Now, I have a rig, and it's really handy because the rig serves as both my squat stand and my pull-up bar. So that's why there's a little bit of caveat there. It's like you can either do this or you can do that. They accomplish the same thing. It's just kind of your preference. Would you rather spend a little bit more on the rig, be able to get a 2-in-1 there, or would you rather buy the pull-up bar and then buy the squat, stand? The good thing with the squat stand, a lot of times it can double up as a yoke in which you could do yoke carries. And it's also a little bit easier to transport. For example, if you work out in your garage and you wanted to be able to do some squats in the driveway, like you have a concrete driveway, you could easily move that squat stand out and perform your squats there in the sun. Whereas with a rig, it's going to be stationary. I like the rig, but you might like the flexibility of the other. The next thing I would say is you want to buy a nice barbell and some bumper plates. A pro tip on the barbell here is I would go to Rogue's website and I would shop their Boneyard bars. Every once in a while when Rogue has some sort of manufacturing defect, it's just cosmetic. It might be like a little scratch on the barbell. Rogue holds himself to such a high standard that even if there's a scratch, they will not sell that as like a normal price item. They'll transport it into a section of their business called the Boneyard area, and then you can actually buy those at discount. And I would look for a Rogue Ohio bar just because that's a really good utility overall bar that's going to be able to withstand, the daily grind of you dropping the barbell from the front rack position or from the overhead position. And so if you can find one on Rogue's website in the Boneyard section, the Ohio bar, you can probably get that for somewhere between $200 and $250. That's a really good deal. To go with that, I would get some bumper plates. Now, I got bumper plates from Rogue, but there's probably some better ways to do it. I'm just not exactly sure what they are. I would shop Rogue. I would shop Titan. Those would probably be the main two. Rogue does offer free shipping if you buy a certain amount of weights. That's what I did. It seemed to be the best deal at the time. It might still be the best deal. But you're going to want some bumper plates eventually. The next thing that I'm going to say, and this could almost go into phase 1 if you wanted it, which is you need a bench. You're not going to use a bench every day, but whenever you need it, it sure is handy. Chances are you can find a good bench somewhere, even at like Goodwill or a thrift store. If you frequent them, people are always giving away it's like old benches that they don't use anymore. And one man's trash is another man's treasure. You might really be able to use it and have like literally no money involved. Now let's say money, you're willing to spend the money, then go buy, a nice Rogue bench or somewhere in between. Like maybe you don't buy Rogue, maybe you don't go to Goodwill, you get one from like Dick's Sporting Goods. I don't know. Just get a bench. It will serve its purpose for sure. The next phase that I want to talk about is where some people are going to be able to jump off the train here. This might not be important to you. I'm calling this section Diversify Your Portfolio. What I mean by that is at this point, you've got the dumbbells, you've got the box, you've got a machine, you've got the rig, bumpers, you've got a nice barbell. Man, there's so many workouts, like almost endless workouts you can do with that combination. However, there's a lot of like little accessories you can buy at this point that will be really useful for you. And where I'm going to caveat this is the section in which you can really start to identify what your specific goals are. And I think all of the equipment you buy in this stage should be aimed towards what your goals are. So let's just say, for example, you wanted to like really build your core. You can use a lot of body weight stuff for that. You can use the rig for things like toes to bar, but maybe you just want to really build that core. So you decide to buy a GHD, glute ham developer, which you can do sit-ups on. That might be something you do. You might also invest in more plates. Let's just say, the plates that you have currently they allow you to do most things, but they don't allow you to get to like your 1 rep deadlift. Maybe you buy some more plates in order for you to get really strong. Another thing that's kind of an accessory, but it can be like really useful, is sandbags. Sandbags are fairly cheap from Rogue's website, and then you just go to the store, fill them up with sand. They're a great tool for if you want to get a workout in like at the park, or you want to take it with you on vacation. They're so versatile, but I would still consider them some sort of accessory. The last phase is phase 4, and if phase 3 was in the weeds as far as, accessorization, phase 4 is even more of that, but I still think it's worth talking about. At this point, you're like really into the home gym thing, and you're bought into it. You see the value in it. It's changed your lifestyle. It's changed your family culture, all those things, in which I would say a good place to engage with phase 4, and I'm calling this the affiliate model, is you're going to want to buy some sort of duplicate items that allow for more group workouts. I'm going to tell you about a specific need I have right now. Is I need to buy a women's barbell. Reason I need that is because my wife and I, sometimes we work out together, and it would be really nice if we could have our own barbells that we would feel comfortable dropping from overhead. And even if we're not working out together, it would still be nice for her to be able to use the women's barbell that's smaller in diameter, that's going to fit her hands a little bit better. But it just hasn't been a priority because like the men's barbell, it gets the job done. It allows us both to be able to perform the movements. So it's a duplicate item. We already have it. We're going to buy it again. But that might be something that you take a look at in this area. The other one that I would put under this category is, you can kind of tip your toes even deeper into non-essential items. And one thing that just came to my mind whenever I thought about this was some sort of contrast therapy. Like if you're really kind of getting into the weeds of health and fitness, you've got all the gym equipment, you're using it regularly. Maybe you add like an infrared sauna, a residential infrared sauna, to be able to just take your health journey and lifestyle to the next level. That's something we've not done. Would love to do that one day in the future. I do see the value in it, but it's not cheap. It's not a cheap price point to just, go in on. And it's like that really has to come last because it doesn't allow you to do any sort of new movement or any sort of new workout. So that concludes the waves, the phases. As I mentioned earlier, you might be able to get through from phase 1 to phase 4 really fast if you have a big budget. If not, you might spend 6 months working on phase 1, and if that's the case, it's totally okay. It's not about how fast you can get to the end. It's just that you're making progress. And at the end of the day, I would say one thing that's really true is you can have all the gym equipment in the world, but none of it is going to produce results unless you use it. So if you have very little gym equipment, you just have the essentials, phase 1, but you're using it on a regular basis, man, you are getting so much more value from that than someone who has the big budget, who is able to, go all the way to phase 4 right off the bat, but they barely use it. And in a way, I would almost use that to your advantage, even in your mindset. Embody that kind of underdog mentality. Like if you're in phase 1, you just have the essentials, man, use them like an underdog. There's people out there that have far more than you that are not using the equipment like they should be. Don't be that person. Utilize your equipment to the best of your ability and make the most of it. So, in conclusion, this was a fairly different episode than I would normally come out with. I'm hoping that it gives you some sort of value. If it does, I would love to hear about it and just see, where are you at in your home gym journey? Have you ever thought about doing CrossFit? In any sort of question or comment you have, I would love to continue on the conversation with you in this area. I could talk about this all day. It's funny. This has actually been one of my longest episodes that I've just recorded by myself. But this is fun for me, and it's been on my mind for a while. So I hope it benefits you, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.